Welcome to Afro Tales Nayas. Please subscribe to the channel for more stories, like, share, and drop a comment. He thought money could buy everything. Until karma sent him a text. Tao had money, confidence, and one very dangerous belief: if you could afford it, you could have it. He was a successful businessman who drove a sleek luxury sedan, wore watches that cost more than some people's houses, and never checked the price of anything. At restaurants, he would wave his hand dramatically. Bring the best. His wife, Ruth, would sometimes look at him and shake her head. Tao, one day that money of yours is going to get you into serious trouble. Tao would laugh. My love, money doesn't cause trouble. Poor people just don't understand how the world works. Ruth would roll her eyes. Okay, Mr. Money. But Tao's arrogance was not limited to restaurants and shopping malls. He had begun to believe that money gave him permission to do whatever he wanted. That was how Sandra entered his life. Sandra was married, but that did not bother Tao. In fact, the fact that she was married seemed to make the affair more exciting. He began showering her with expensive gifts, sending money whenever she asked, and booking luxurious hotels whenever they wanted to meet. One evening, Sandra looked at him suspiciously. Tao, what if my husband finds out? Tao laughed. Find out what? Do you think he can afford to compete with me? Sandra smiled. You really think money can solve everything? Everything, Tao replied confidently. It was a sentence he would later wish he had never spoken. Tao became increasingly careless. He would leave home late at night, switch off his phone, and invent excuses. Where were you? Ruth would ask. Business meeting. At 11 p.m. International business. Ruth stared at him. Which country? Tao hesitated. Botswana. Ruth raised an eyebrow. Tao, you left this house at 9 and came back at 11. Botswana has traffic. Ruth stared at him for several seconds. Of course it doesn't, it's a day and a night's drive from Harare. I'm not dumb, Tao. She walked away. She knew he was lying. But instead of confronting him immediately, Ruth began watching. And the more she watched, the more she discovered. She found messages. She noticed unexplained withdrawals. She saw photographs. She even discovered that some of the business meetings had taken place in hotels. Ruth was hurt, but she was not foolish. She decided she would not compete with Sandra. Instead, she would let Tao reveal exactly who he had become. Meanwhile, Sandra had discovered something very useful. Tao was generous. Very generous. Her rent was due. Tao paid it. Her phone broke. Tao bought another one. She needed money. Tao transferred it. She wanted a weekend away. Tao booked the hotel. Sandra soon realized that Tao wasn't simply her lover. He was her ATM. And she knew exactly which buttons to press. Tao, you are the only man who understands me, she would whisper. Those words were music to his ears. Unfortunately, Sandra was telling similar things to someone else. Enter Brian. Sandra's husband had a friend named Brian. Brian was calm, charming, and far less flashy than Tao. While Tao was busy buying Sandra things, Brian was giving her something Tao had forgotten to give her. Attention. Sandra began spending more time with Brian. At first, Tao noticed nothing. He was too busy believing that his money had secured Sandra's loyalty. Then things started changing. Sandra became less available. She stopped answering his calls immediately. Her messages became shorter. Her excuses became more frequent. One Friday afternoon, Tao decided to surprise her. He bought flowers, expensive perfume, and booked a hotel room. He called her. Baby, I'm coming to pick you up. Get ready. Sandra hesitated. Tao, today isn't a good day. Why? I have a family issue. Tao frowned. I thought you said your husband was away. He came back early. Tao immediately changed his tone. Ah, okay. Tomorrow. Tomorrow will be better. Tao hung up. Women, he muttered, always complicated. What he didn't know was that Sandra wasn't with her husband. She was with Brian. That evening, Tao received a message from an unknown number. How does it feel to be the other man? Tao stared at the screen. What nonsense is this? Another message arrived. You should ask your wife. His stomach tightened. For the first time, Tao felt something money couldn't fix. Fear. He rushed home. When Tao entered the house, Ruth was sitting quietly in the lounge. There was no shouting. No tears. No argument. That frightened him more. Where have you been? She asked. Business. Ruth smiled coldly. Botswana again. Tao froze. You knew. Ruth looked at him. I've known about Sandra for months. Tao's face went pale. Sandra. Yes, your married girlfriend. Tao sat down. Who told you? Nobody. She paused. You were simply a terrible liar. Tao tried to speak, but Ruth stopped him. No, don't explain. Ruth, I can explain. I don't want an explanation, Tao. I want you to understand something. She stood up. You didn't just cheat on me. You humiliated me. You took the money we built together and used it to finance another woman's lifestyle. You lied to my face and made me feel like a fool in my own marriage. Tao lowered his head. I am sorry. Ruth laughed bitterly. Sorry. Yes. Do you know how many nights I sat here wondering whether I had done something wrong? Tao looked up. You didn't. Then why did you do it? Tao had no answer. For once, the man who always had an answer for everything was silent. Ruth picked up her handbag. I am going to my sister's house. Tao stood up. Ruth, please don't go. She looked at him. You wanted freedom. You have it. Then she walked out. Tao stood in the doorway watching his wife leave. And suddenly, his expensive house felt empty. Then Sandra delivered the final blow. Tao's phone rang. Sandra. He answered immediately. Sandra, we need to talk. There was silence. Then she spoke. Tao, I think we should end this. What? I've met someone else. Tao nearly dropped the phone. Someone else? Yes. Who? Sandra sighed. Brian. Tao's eyes widened. Brian, your husband's friend. Yes. You're joking. No, Tao. But I've done everything for you. Sandra laughed softly. Exactly. What does that mean? It means you did everything because you thought money could buy me. Tao was speechless. Then came the final blow. Oh, and Tao, thank you for paying my rent for the last 6 months. The line went dead. Tao stared at his phone. His mouth opened, but no words came out. The man who had once proudly declared that money could buy everything had just discovered that he had spent a fortune purchasing absolutely nothing. The next morning, Tao drove straight to Sandra's house. He wanted answers. Instead, he found Brian walking out of the gate. Brian stopped. Tao. Tao stared at him. You. Brian nodded. You took Sandra from me. Brian smiled. Brother, nobody took anybody. He paused. You were busy spending money. I was busy spending time. Tao clenched his fists. You knew about me. Everybody knew about you. That hurt more. Brian walked away. Tao remained standing there, surrounded by the expensive car, expensive clothes and expensive perfume he had bought for a woman who had never loved him the way he imagined. For the first time, he felt poor. Not financially or emotionally. When Tao returned home, Ruth was still gone. He called. No answer. He sent messages. No response. He sent flowers. They were returned. He sent money. Ruth sent it back. That was when Tao realized Ruth was different from Sandra. Ruth did not want his money. She wanted respect. For several days, Tao stayed alone in the house. The silence became unbearable. His friends invited him out and he refused. His business continued, but something had changed. He finally had time to think. He remembered Ruth's warnings. He remembered the lies. He remembered every time she had trusted him. And he realized that Sandra had not destroyed his marriage. He had big time. One evening, Tao drove to Ruth's sister's house. He did not take flowers. He did not take expensive gifts. He did not take money. He simply stood at the door. When Ruth opened it, she looked at him. What do you want? Tao swallowed hard. I want to apologize. Ruth said nothing. I know saying sorry doesn't undo what I did. Still nothing. I betrayed you. I lied to you. I embarrassed you. And I treated our marriage like something I could replace whenever I got bored. Ruth's eyes filled with tears. Tao continued. I thought money made me powerful. I thought because I could provide everything materially, I could do whatever I wanted. He shook his head. I was wrong. Ruth folded her arms. And what makes you think I should take you back? Tao looked at her. I don't know if you should. That answer surprised her. I came here because you deserve to hear me say that I was wrong. If you never forgive me, I'll understand. Ruth looked at him for a long moment. You really have changed. I am trying to. Trying isn't enough, Tao. I know. She took a deep breath. You broke something that money cannot repair. Tao nodded. I know. And forgiveness doesn't mean everything goes back to normal tomorrow. I know. You will have to earn my trust again. Tao nodded. I will. Ruth looked away. After a long silence, she finally said, You can come inside. Tao almost smiled. Then she added, But don't mistake that for forgiveness. His smile disappeared. Yes, ma'am. For the first time in months, Ruth almost laughed. Go and make tea. Tao blinked. Tea. Yes, since you are suddenly a humble man. Tao smiled. I'm making tea. As Tao entered the kitchen, his phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. How's Botswana? Tao stared at the screen. Then he laughed. Ruth looked at him. What is it? Tao shook his head. Karma. Ruth smiled. No, that's not karma. What is it? She pointed toward the kitchen. That's your punishment. You are making your own tea from now on. Tao laughed. And for the first time, he understood the lesson. Money could buy cars, hotels, perfume, jewelry, and expensive dinners. But it could not buy loyalty, trust, and it certainly could not buy back a woman's dignity after you had broken her heart. Tao had spent a fortune trying to impress Sandra. In the end, Sandra left him for a man who spent time with her. And the woman who truly loved him, Ruth, made him understand that forgiveness was not a free gift. It had to be earned. Tao had finally tasted his own medicine. And this time, there was no amount of money in the world that could pay the bill. The end. Please remember to comment, subscribe, and share. Cheers.